Hey everybody, Marcus here with NextLevelRecording.com and welcome to part 2 of mixing drums. Today we'll be focusing on EQ and how I tackle EQing a drum set. I'm just going to jump into where I left off from part 1, so if you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. So once I get the balance that I like with the drums, I like to start with the kick drum and work my way up the kit by adding each element as I go. Now I'm just going to go ahead and EQ this entire drum set. There won't be much talking, but you'll be seeing what I'm doing and what I'm hearing. And then after I'm done, I'll quickly go through what I did for each element. So let's get started. Cool, so those are the close mics for the kick, snare top, snare bottom, rack and floor tom, and the hi-hats. When I get to the overheads, I like to really hear what I'm doing, and I'll EQ these separately. Now, I have my overheads separate just because the mics are in different parts of the room, so those small variances in room can make a big difference. Cool. So I think these cymbals are kind of bright. So I'm not going to boost any right now. But I think that's a great start with the EQ. Now I'm going to play these together. Remember, we didn't have any of the room mic in because it didn't really add anything that the overheads didn't. So I'm just going to keep it down. But let me go ahead and bypass and re-enable these EQs, and you'll see the huge difference that it's already made with these small moves. Let me go to a different part. There we go. Cool. So I think that sounds great. It's a huge difference when I put that EQ back in. So let me just run through real quick what I did for each element. Now the kick drum was really boxy sounding, so I took a lot of the mids out, and I took a pretty good chunk. But remember, it doesn't matter what it looks like, just what it sounds like. When you take the mids, low mids, upper mids out of a kick drum, it'll really let the thump of the kick drum shine through, even if you didn't boost it. But I also went ahead and boosted where this kick drum was really resonating at 102. I added some 5,400 to give it a little bit more snap with the beater, and I rolled off a little bit of the high end that I didn't need. Also, I high pass filtered up to 30. I don't really need that in this particular song, so I cleaned it up, and it'll give me more headroom in the mix. Now remember, high pass filtering is your best friend. So on the snare top, again, I high pass filtered up to 90. I like using the frequency analyzer in the background so I know when to stop. But if you don't have one of those, just kind of go with the high pass filter until you hear it really start changing, and then roll it back a little bit until you get the fatness of the snare drum again. So this snare drum was kind of boxy as well. So I took some 586 out and some 789. I kind of was getting a lot of the room in this area, so I wanted to cut that out, and it really made it tighter. I boosted the fatness of this snare drum at 152, and I also boosted a bunch of the high frequencies just to kind of let this snare drum shine a little bit and have some more character. Now for the snare bottom, again, high pass filtered, pretty high up on this. There's not that much low information, so you could take out a pretty good chunk. I took the room out of this as well at a 726. Now there wasn't that much boxiness in the bottom mic, but there was a little bit, so I took that out. And you really want to let the snare shine on the lower mic on the snare bottom, so I boosted the frequencies as well. And if you do this, sometimes you'll have to turn down the volume on the snare bottom just to allow it to blend better. Now the rack toms I treat kind of like a bass drum as well. So if you take the mids out, you're really gonna emphasize the low end of that particular drum. So I took some boxiness out of the toms, boosted where these were resonating. So this was resonating really well at 137, kind of the meat of this drum. And again, I high pass filtered all the way up to 40 just to clean up the low end a little bit. Also, I like having a lot of attack on my toms. It lets them cut through in the mix because sometimes toms can get lost. So I boosted 6,000 and then rolled off some high frequencies just to kind of clean up any bleed that I might be getting from the cymbals. Now I basically did the same exact thing with the floor tom. Took some boxiness out that emphasized the lower end of this drum, boosted that lower end at 188, high pass filtered again all the way up to 40. Again, high pass filter is your best friend. Didn't really need any more attack than I already have in this drum, so I liked where it was, but I did roll off some of the top end just to cut out some of the cymbal bleed as well. Now, hi-hats are a different story. A lot of people like moving the high pass filter all the way up just to kind of cut all the lows out, but there is a lot of information in the low frequencies of a hi-hat, so I recommend doing that because there's still drum information. There was kind of a boxiness in these as well, kind of just gross sounding overtones, if you will, in this area. So I cut them out, There was a little bit of a harshness in the almost 5,000 range that I didn't like. If you go back, you can hear me boost this and kind of, you really hear an annoying pitch frequency. And I took that out and then boosted just a little bit just to let them cut through and have a little bit more character. Now with the overheads, same thing is going on for all of these tracks. I took out some boxiness. Some of the 1,000, 1,200 range was really kind of piercing me in the ear. So I went ahead and took that out. If you go back, you can really hear this when it's boosted. And then I took out some of the overtone grossness of these cymbals. And that's for both of the overheads. Now, I didn't boost any of the high frequencies just because I think they're, kind of piercing anyway. So if anything, I'll go and roll off some of the low end just to kind of smooth them out a little bit. And that's really all I did for EQing, and you could see the big difference already. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this one more time and bypass it, re-enable, just so you can hear the difference again. And then we'll call it a day for this video. Cool, they sound great so far. Now, see how much it tightens up even with just EQ moves. Now imagine what is going to happen when we do compression, and that's going to be in the next video. Be on the lookout for part 3 of mixing drums, and that's going to be focused on compression. Please subscribe to us on here, like us, leave any comments or questions you may have, and also follow us on Instagram at Next Level Recording. And until next time, I'll catch you later.